the sea-stricken 8:8 and 9, Revelation 8:8 and 9. And the second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a huge mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became blood, and a third part of the creatures in the sea died, even of all those possessing breath, that is, fish and mammals. And a third part of the ships were destroyed. The same agencies obtain in this second trumpet judgment as we saw operating in the first. The judgment is decreed by God, is part of the revelation of Jesus Christ, is heralded by an archangel, administered by one of the four powers, that is, the angels of the winds of Revelation 7:1-3, and mediated by the two witnesses. While the first trumpet judgment was dramatic, the appearance in the heavens of such a monstrous portent and its subsequent descent to earth with such horrific results clearly marks this second judgment out as of greater import than the first. This fiery meteorite, mountainous in its size, will strike the earth's seas and cause unheard of devastation in this second realm of operation, just as the first did on the land. While the many meteorites of the first trumpet judgment fell everywhere on earth, destroying a third of its vegetation in the process, this large fiery meteorite's impact will be centralized, striking in one particular area with its devastating effects, then radiating outward. The first such effect will be the turning of an entire third of the world sea into blood, also radiating out from the point of impact. As was the case when the Nile was turned to blood, Exodus 7:14-24, natural processes will eventually dilute and dissipate this mass of concentrated contamination, but not until an entire third of the animate creatures in the sea are killed because of its noxious effects, as happened to the fish in the Nile as well, Exodus 7:18 and 7:21. The second devastating effect of this colossal meteorite strike will be the destruction of a third of the world's ships, undoubtedly stemming from the tsunamis that travel outward from the point of impact and the severe vortex it will create, which will swallow up everything in the vicinity. In addition to the significant loss of life which will occur aboard this large number of ships lost at sea, there will unquestionably be heavy casualties on many islands and coastlines from the astounding waves such an event must produce, making this judgment almost certainly more fatal than the first. We also note that, as detailed in the timeline given, the effects of this judgment will be twice as long as those of the first, for this judgment's effects will endure for 2 months. Finally, the blood accompanying it, in addition to being a warning sign as we saw previously, now actually becomes a means to administering part of this second judgment. While believers will also receive a large measure of divine protection during this plague, that does not mean that we will be spared of all its consequences either. The devastation caused by this second trumpet judgment will have a massive negative economic impact, occasioned by the loss of a third of the world's shipping, the dislocation to the food supply stemming from the loss of a third of the world's fisheries, and the devastation of many of the world's coastal areas. We cannot say for certain that our livelihoods and economic situations will be unaffected. What we can say for certain is that God will provide for our every need in spite of the grievous nature of this judgment. We must with complete faith cast all our cares upon Him, secure in the absolute conviction that He does care for us, 1 Peter 5:7, and put all worry for material things aside, confident in the knowledge that our God knows our every need and will continue to supply them no matter what the historical circumstances may be. Matthew 6:25-34. Freshwater stricken, 8:10 and 11. Revelation 8:10 and 11. And the third angel sounded his trumpet. And an asteroid, literally a large star, fell from the sky burning like a torch, and it fell upon a third part of the rivers and upon the sources of their waters. And the name of the asteroid was called Absinthe, that is, wormwood. And the third part of the waters turned into absinthe, that is, wormwood. And many of the people of the earth died from these waters, because they had been made bitter. The progression of falling objects, increasing in size through each judgment, continues here, taking us from the hail of the first trumpet judgment, that is, meteorite fragments, to the mountain of the second, that is, a very large, intact meteorite, and now to a star, that is, a small asteroid. The Greek large star must be understood in terms of the times in which the book of Revelation was written. Clearly, should a star of whatever size in the sense in which we use the word today impact the Earth, complete and immediate vaporization of the entire planet would result. But the Greek word aster refers to any luminous heavenly body, whether meteoroids, asteroids, planets, or even stars. The largeness of the star is likewise not to be understood from an absolute point of view, but in comparison to the visible size of other luminous heavenly bodies when this asteroid enters the atmosphere, it will be most impressive compared to anything else visible in the sky. That is true even in comparison to the mountainous meteorite of the second trumpet judgment, for this asteroid will not only be larger, but will also be brighter. It will not only be glowing red with fire-reddish light, but will emit extremely bright white-hot light like a lamp. Several things are implied by the fact that this asteroid falls upon a third of the world's rivers and springs. First, instead of the sharp angle of descent probable in the case of the falling bodies of the first two trumpet judgments, it is likely that this asteroid will enter the Earth's atmosphere obliquely and in a gradual descent, thus heightening its worldwide visibility and producing a visual effect even more dramatic than was the case in the previous two judgments. Secondly, in order to achieve the outcome of contaminating a third of the world's rivers and springs, it is further likely that this asteroid will gradually disintegrate on its extended journey through the Earth's atmosphere, possibly ending in a final explosion, with the result being that the asteroid's substance will then be spread throughout the atmosphere in the form of noxious fallout. The fallout thus produced will be sufficient to contaminate a full one-third of the world's supply of fresh water, and this dire occurrence will have the effect of killing many of the people of the Earth. Although it is not specified here that one-third of the world's population is destroyed, as is often wrongly assumed from this passage, this third trumpet judgment will nevertheless produce more fatalities than the second. Given the increase in the number of deaths, the more lengthy nature of the judgment, lasting for 3 months according to our projection, and the fact that this judgment will begin with an event even more dramatic than the other two, that is, the widely visible brightness of the descending asteroid, we can clearly see the pattern of accelerating judgment continuing. Wormwood, moreover, is not an angel, as is sometimes supposed, but merely the name given to this asteroid on account of the effects it produces. Although we need not understand this asteroid as being entirely composed of wormwood, we are meant to take the production of wormwood in the affected streams and springs as literal, just as in the case of the first trumpet judgment, where the meteorite fragments contained literal blood, and also in the case of the second, where the large meteorite produced literal blood. Wormwood, or absinthe, is a bitter plant of the genus Artemisia, often used in a metaphorical sense in Scripture, on account of its exceptionally embittering properties. It is true that the effect of the fallout this asteroid produces will, in any case, be to turn one-third of the world's fresh water so bitter that it cannot be drunk. However, as was true of the literal blood of the first two trumpet judgments, the presence of literal wormwood will be an unmistakable sign to all the inhabitants of the earth that this judgment has come about from the hand of God, and could not possibly have occurred in any other way. The symbolic nature of the wormwood is also important. Just as blood is a sign of coming divine retribution upon outrageous acts that require the blood of the perpetrators, so wormwood recalls the poison and the bitterness of idolatry, the turning away from God unto Satan in an overt, willful, and organized way, a key characteristic of the devil's tribulational false religion, as we have seen.